You've probably quite rightly seen a lot of hype around Cursor AI from a company called Anysphere. I even did a quick review of the AI-powered VS Code forked IDE on this very YouTube channel. But it's not the first AI-powered coding assistant that I reviewed here. In fact, there are now lots of them. So in this video, we will explore whether they can survive the fierce competitive landscape of AI coding assistants. So let's start by taking a look at this spreadsheet of the main AI coding assistants. So just keep in mind that these are the larger AI coding products or products that are used for AI coding suggestions, even if they can do more. But there are in fact many other AI coding assistants which have a very small market share and didn't make it onto this list. Now these lower and upper bounds of market share are not necessarily accurate. They're produced by ChatGPT, but then modified based on their recent traction and press. So be careful reading too much into them, but it should give us enough to go on. Now, if you look here, the one that stands out is GitHub Copilot by Microsoft with a whopping 40 to 50% of the market share. You've also got OpenAI's ChatGPT, which a lot of people use for programming. Then you've got Amazon Q Developer, which used to be Code Whisperer, and so on and so forth. Now, most of these are headed towards multi-model setups if they're not already, because that seems to be the optimal setup. Some of these products are standalone like ChatGPT or Amazon Q Developer, and others are kind of easier to sell in with existing subscriptions such as Copilot or JetBrains AI Assistant. If we take a look at this chart of the market share, you can see the kind of skewing towards the major players like GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT, and we find Cursor all the way down here, although we suspect that they'll move to the left on this chart because of their recent investment and also popularity amongst developers. Now, if we take a look at pricing, let's just order that list. So you can see that the pricing for Cursor is sort of at the higher end, but it's not wildly expensive or wildly cheap. It's kind of in line with its competitors. And I suspect that this race is not really going to be won based on price. And whilst there will be some price sensitivity in this market, we suspect that largely it's about the feature set and how good the product is. And that will have a much bigger weighting on the success of the product than merely pricing alone. Now, there's also a distinction to be made here between organizations that might be training their own foundation models, such as Claude AI, these companies merely farming out to other LLMs, such as Cursor AI, and those where it's a hybrid of the two, such as JetBrains AI Assistant. Now, just a caveat that not all of these fit neatly into these categories, since Cursor do have their own lightweight models and JetBrains have their own LLMs, such as Melum, but it's not necessarily clear what the scale of these models is. And this will make a difference in terms of their competitive position, but it does feel like any product which gains traction will go down the hybrid route eventually, given that this will likely cater for the most use cases optimally. Now, as I said, there's a lot more than these, but I try to focus on the ones that have a significant market share, and already you can see that there's quite a bit of competition. Now, when it comes to Cursor, I tried the product and I actually really liked it. I think their proposition is very compelling, but it's not always the best product that wins out in the end. There are many other factors, and we're going to break down all of that. So first of all, let's look at the size of the market. What is the actual size of the opportunity that they're going after, the total market size? What's the scale of the opportunity? Well, we can take a look at this report from Grandview Research, a research organization that state that the current market is sized at 18.6 million US dollars. However, they predict that the market will be worth 92.5 million US dollars in 2030. But according to a different bit of research, it's more likely to be around 2.3 billion US dollars by as early as 2028. Now, in terms of trends, one could say that these tools make producing code more efficient. So you need fewer developers, so the market could get smaller. Alternatively, you could say that developing useful software becomes cheaper, so there will be more of it and the size of the market will grow. Having said all of that, and with all the talk of impending AGI, it becomes very hard to predict what the programming or any other knowledge work landscape will look like in 2030. So next up, let's take a look at their funding situation. So they've raised 60 million US dollars in Series A, including from former GitHub CEO Nat Friedman, and previously an 8 million US dollar seed round, including investment from OpenAI. So a total of 68 million US dollars. Now, it's easy to get confused because there was previously a company called Cursor with the same website. That company raised 2 million US dollars, but was later acquired by Data Robot. So let's go back to the real Cursor, the Cursor that we're interested in. The various investments have given them a valuation of around 400 million US dollars. So they have some money to spend and invest. By the way, if you find this content useful, then please do subscribe. It's very much appreciated. So let's take a look at what's so special about Cursor. Well, you have the intelligent tab, which predicts your next move even across different portions of a file. You can edit multiple parts of a file. You can make multi-line smart edits to existing code. They are heavily integrated into the IDE rather than just being a plugin, since they forked VS Code. So for example, even the command line allows you to enter commands in natural language, and then it will generate the actual commands behind the scenes. There's also a lot of customization you can do to the tool, making it more useful. And Composer allows you to generate entire code bases from your descriptions, and it has lots of other useful features too. So what are some of the issues with Cursor? Well, currently they are limited to VS Code as an IDE. If you don't use this, you will face a switching cost. Likely your current IDE also has AI assistant options, so you will pay a penalty to switch to benefit from the improved AI tooling. Meanwhile, your own IDE's AI tooling is also improving. They will also likely make extensions for other IDEs, but then they might face many of the limitations on what the plugins or extensions are capable of doing, detracting from their great user experience. But all in all, the product is popular and being marketed heavily. All right, so now let's take a look at Michael Porter's 5 forces as a way to analyze the competitive position of AI coding assistants. Now, if you don't know Michael Porter, he's a Harvard professor who came up with this set of 5 categories that allows you to understand the level of competitive forces that exist in an industry segment. And it really does provide a very useful framework for what we want to do. And we're going to map it out on this chart, but let's come back to that in a second. So the first category is the threat of new entrants. Now, this is very high. We can see from our initial spreadsheet that there are already a number of incumbents like Copilot, but all the time there are new entrants entering the market. For example, these products here. And the list really goes on. Now, developers can target a particular aspect of the development process or a particular type of coding task and create a thin product that farms out the heavy lifting to one or more LLMs. And there you have a product. So the threat of new entrants is very real and very high. We'll give that a score of 8 out of 10. Next up, we have the bargaining power of suppliers. Well, here the big foundation model suppliers like OpenAI or Claude, Google, etc. do have the ability to tweak the pricing for the usage of their models, but selling access to large foundation models is also a very competitive market, and we've seen prices come down, so maybe not such a big issue for Cursor. We've given this a score of 6. Next up, you have the bargaining power of buyers. Now, this is an interesting one. Buyers in this case are developers or corporate clients buying licenses for their dev teams. Now, once people have invested, there tends to be a bit of stickiness because there is a slight cost to shifting, but developers are as cost sensitive as others, and any price hike could see people moving to cheaper options or coping with free tiers. And as developers switch to Cursor, this proves that they are willing to switch. This inherently gives them some bargaining power, meaning that the option to continually raise prices is not really available. So we've given this a score of 7. Next up, we have the threat of substitutes. If we exclude the substitution of other AI assistants, which is covered in another category, industry rivalry, then this is low. People code, they tend to code a lot, and there's not much alternative to using AI assistants anymore. I know not everybody is a fan, but I don't know many people who now say that they won't use these tools for whatever reason, since although they're not perfect, they do have a profound impact on the developer experience. So we've given the threat of substitutes as very low at 1. Next up, we have industry rivalry. Well, given the ease of entering this space, anyone can build a tool, leaving the heavy lifting to LLM vendors. There's no shortage of players who will build interesting tools to assist with various development tasks. And it is time critical, i.e. this is a hot industry now. There is a race to be the first with new features and the best with the greatest performance. The fact that Cursor gained so much traction shows that developers will switch for a better product, and there are many options available, not to mention new entrants entering this market easily. The incumbents like Copilot will not want to really give away any territory to new entrants and will copy features and could easily compete on price, but I suspect it is the experience that will win out rather than price. Other players like JetBrains AI Assistant can leverage their already large paying customer base to upsell the product to. So we've given industry rivalry a very high score of 8. So looking at this chart based on the scores that we've given each category, it really does look like a very tough market and difficult for any one player to maintain a huge lead, unless of course they have something which could cut through this, which GitHub has to some extent, since they have so many users of GitHub repositories and they already have relationships with enterprise that they could potentially sell this product into more easily than say Cursor. JetBrains also have an advantage that they have lots of paying customers already that they can upsell this product to, and allowing those customers to stick to their IDEs. So really it's a very competitive industry and difficult for any one player to fully dominate. All right, so next up, let's talk about moats. Now, if you don't know the analogy of the moat, it's one used extensively by Warren Buffett. The analogy is that the ideal business business is like a castle that's protected by a moat that surrounds it. In the moat, there may be crocodiles and other defenses which protect the castle from attackers. A good business is like that. It's a profitable business whose position is protected by some kind of competitive barriers to entry, i.e. the moat with the crocodiles in it. The moat could be network effects, proprietary technology, or some other factor. This article highlights very well that there doesn't seem to be a strong moat. And in fact, the VS Code IDE has more of a moat than Cursor does with their popular IDE. It also makes the point that if Cursor can steal market share from Copilot because users can switch easily, or the moment a superior product is available, they could then just as easily switch to that. So there appears to be no major moat for Cursor AI other than, say, a great user experience. Now, according to this article written in early September, Cursor AI had 30,000 paying customers. So by now that might be more like 50,000, purely a guesstimate based on their marketing hype and recent popularity amongst developers, which wouldn't be too bad. It means that they have actual revenue, but is it enough? Now, in terms of the usefulness of AI coding assistants, this article also questions the impact that these coding assistants have had so far. It mentions a study by Uplevel which found no significant gains. They found that using Copilot introduced a whopping 41% more bugs. Now, my view is that these tools are code completion on steroids, and I now make fewer trips to Stack Overflow or Google. It's also saved me a lot of time writing scripts or boilerplate code. But overall tasks I work on as a software engineer still require a lot of analysis, problem solving, dealing with stakeholders, and checking for correctness. So a small improvement in productivity on the coding side has not had a huge impact on my output. It's really just changed the way that I work. But having said that, I think that AI coding assistants are useful in their current form, and as they improve, they will continue to make an impact. AI will also make its way into every other part of the software lifecycle, from writing requirements and tickets to analyzing support tickets to testing to reviewing PRs, and the cumulative effect will be immense. So whilst it is right to inspect the impact these tools are having, we must look at the direction of travel and the rate of improvement of the models and the software that embeds them into our workflows. And regardless of any shortcomings of these tools, as they stand, are not specific to Cursor, so have little bearing on the competitive situation. So while all this has been going on, the team behind GitHub Copilot have been listening, and it looks like now they have responded.
First, I wanted to talk about models. We have this new model picker, and as Copilot always had multiple models under the hood, when would you want to pick a different model? When your task demands it. O1, for example, is our most advanced model. It should be your pick for complicated tasks. Let's give it a complicated task then. Let's build a working chess game from scratch, rendered in 3D. When writing prompts for O1, be specific and clear to help its planning. Now O1 reasons through my requirements, taking its sweet time, but then it generates the full game in one go. And remarkably, once we run this, the game works. With a nice take on artistic rendering, let's add some polish. The board and pieces look a bit too flat and need some shadows. This time, I will use the default model, GPT-4o. While O1 could do this task, quick code iterations are for GPT-4 and it handles it with ease. And my updated code streams in, it's a few lines of change to enable shadows, and we're done. A beautiful working game in minutes, thanks to Copilot. But let's step out of demo land into the familiar world of day-to-day development. My project is a community website for tracking marathon results. It started as a boilerplate swell kit project, but like most development work, it has evolved into something distinct with its own particular style and conventions. Copilot has always been fantastic at handling boilerplate code, but now, with custom instructions, I can tailor it to my specific code bases. The instructions file in this repo give Copilot guidance in every chat conversation, helping it deliver more relevant results on the first try. And this minimizes the need for corrections and keeps me productive and focused on development. And as expected with VS Code, I can further personalize instructions with fine-grained settings. This is a great starting point to tweak my own Copilot experience across projects. So, with instructions in place, let's implement a leaderboard to show the fastest marathon runners. And Copilot Edits is our new tool for large changes across multiple files. I give it the code it needs, my open files, and tell it what I want: a leaderboard, page, and a link. Now, Copilot plans out all required changes, including the 2 new files for the page. Meanwhile, I can start reviewing a stiff stream into my editor, but only when I hit save, Copilot touches the actual files. And allowing Copilot to save changes automatically is my choice, as I love to verify results in live updated previews. And that worked like charm. Just one prompt to get a working leaderboard that I can keep iterating on. Copilot Edits is ready for you to try out now in VS Code. So give it a spin for your next big coding task.
So just to highlight the competitive nature of this space, you can see from this GitHub Dev Day set of announcements for their Copilot product, they have effectively directly responded to Cursor gaining popularity. So for sure, these announcements from GitHub would have been sobering for Cursor. They've introduced many of the features directly into their product that made Cursor special. They announced moving to a multi-model approach, allowing customers to choose which model they want to use. They will have more fine-tuned models. You'll be able to edit across multiple files. Other plugins and extensions can now work with Copilot. They even have a builder's toolkit to work with, so you can build your own Copilot extensions. They have an upgrade system that can automatically manage upgrades of your project. You have the ability to customize your Copilot experience with Copilot instructions. This is again something that you could do with Cursor. So you really can see some of the effects of competition that were highlighted in Michael Porter's 5 Forces in action. Your incumbent competitor simply copies any cool features that you came up with until all the products in this category start to look the same.
So it looks like GitHub Copilot might be integrating O1 in some kind of way. And I think some of the comments are saying, does this mean Cursor is done? I think I saw one comment saying that.
I saw time to shut down Cursor.
Time to shut down Cursor.
Right
Thank you. So is it time to shut down Cursor?
I think this space is a little bit different from past software spaces over the 2010s, where I think that the ceiling here is really, really, really incredibly high. And so I think that the best product in 3 to 4 years will just be so much more useful than the best product today. And you can like wax poetic about Moats this and brand that, and this is our advantage. But I think in the end, just if you don't have if you stop innovating on the product, you will lose. And that's also great for startups. That's great for people trying to enter this market because it means you have an opportunity to win against people who have lots of users already by just building something better. And so I think over the next few years, it's just about building the best product, building the best system, and that both comes down to the modeling engine side of things, and it also comes down to the editing experience.
If we take a look at this Google Trends chart over the last 12 months, we can see that there was plenty of consistent interest in Copilot. And very recently, around August and September, there's a spike of interest in Cursor, but Copilot is still the bigger player. If we also add in Claude AI, we can see that it has much more interest, but Claude is a much wider product and not just used for coding. So coming back to Cursor, what could they do to win out in the end in this difficult market? Well, they could try a few things. They could firstly retain their product advantage. They seem to be the leaders in this space, bringing such features quickly to users, and the advantage they have as a small organization with only this product as a focus means that they can continue to bring out new features to stay ahead of the competition and gain some of that first mover advantage with features, not product. The next thing they could try is community building. They could try to figure out a way to garner loyalty through community. This part could help make the product more sticky and useful if users feel part of a vibrant community where they can also contribute. Another thing they could try is ecosystem building. Now, if they were to build a marketplace within their product that could allow users to build extensions that directly utilize the AI features. But for more narrow use cases, this could be a way to utilize the community to build tools that would help to make the product more sticky. However, it is important to note that Copilot is already doing this. Ultimately, doing all of these or doing them better than the competition is a type of differentiation. So looking at the 5 competitive forces, you can see that the landscape could be seen as very challenging. And with incumbents in place, Cursor have managed to make a very compelling product. But it won't take long for other providers to come up with improvements to their offerings that will make the difference with Cursor look small, as is very well highlighted by the recent Copilot announcements. That being said, there is an element of stickiness which will slow adoption, but the current hype helps to get over that. And until there is a lot of hype around another entrant, this will help them keep their growing user base. Cursor have sizable investment from useful investors who can help with their growth. They also have actual revenue with real paying customers, so I think they will have a space in the market, but I don't think it will be as big as the hype. AI has been and will continue to make its way into every point to decision making, whether it's coding, config, maintenance, and this will surely eat into any lead that Cursor may develop. There seems to be little here that could allow them to develop any strong moat. So despite all of this, I really hope that Cursor do succeed because it's a great product and has pushed the industry along, and it will be cool for it to continue to be a breakout success, but it's not a business that I would want to be in. It is highly competitive with incumbents in place that can without too much difficulty replicate your innovations since they are mostly unprotected. Let me know whether you use Cursor or other AI coding assistants in the comments below, and if you don't want to be the last to know about important AI, tech, programming news and industry reports and analysis, then be sure to hit subscribe. Thank you for watching.